Thanks for that, and thank you very much for allowing me to come and address this meeting to support the greenco strikers, the GMB greenco strikers. And this first came to my attention at the Yorkshire Humber Regional TUC's AGM, where an emergency motion was passed there and passed unanimously by all the trade unions in Yorkshire and Humberside to give this support. It's also it's been brought to my attention once again that helped remind me of my own branch of ASLEF in Sheffield. I've had, I think Peter came along and spoke on Wednesday at their meeting and asking what support we can give nationally. Well, I give you this commitment here, is that within the next 2 weeks, ASLEF nationally will be coming up with some support to the GMB strikers at at Greenco in Sheffield. Now, I do bring the greetings of the General Secretary, all the Executive Committee and the officers of ASLEF who give the support as well. I'm not here just speaking in a personal capacity, I am here speaking as the President of ASLEF and bring support from all at national level. And you know, sometimes places like this I'm reminded that perhaps this coalition government we had and the Tory government we've got now have done something good. They've got me out of stuffy offices, they've got me out of meetings in London all the time, and I'm getting to speak on megaphones, addressing real people again. And that's something that the whole of the trade union movement should be doing. I know we have a campaign with all the other rail unions called Action for Rail and other bodies involved in trying to get rail back into public ownership and stop the cuts to the rail service, and it's fantastic. And you know, every time we have an Action for Rail Day, all the general secretaries and all the presidents, they stand in front of a banner outside one of the London train stations and have a press conference there, and photos get put around, and it's really good. Well, at the last one I decided I weren't going to be there. I was going to be at Barnsley with the Freedom Riders, because it was also the first anniversary of the first Freedom Ride, and anybody who's fighting against austerity and against cuts are friends of the Labour movement and natural allies of the Labour Party, and they need to realise that. Now, I started on the railway in 1979, and all the work we used to do there was coal trains from pit to power station, empties back to the pit and back to the power station. Occasionally we actually took coal to Immingham to export it. We actually exported it. And at that time when I started work in 1979, we owned everything. We owned the minerals beneath the feet. We owned the means of getting them up from the depths of the earth, brought out by members of the National Union of Mine Workers. We owned the means to transport it from the colliery to the power station, transported on the railways, publicly owned railways, by ASLEF and NUR members as they were at that time. And then members of trade unions turned that fuel into power. They generated it into power, and it went out, and we actually owned them power generating companies. We owned all the utilities, and it were all for the benefit of people. All the public spending was for the benefit of people who needed it and the society that needed it. And things changed, because also in 1979 a woman got elected as Prime Minister called Margaret Thatcher. And this is getting old hat now, because I say it everywhere I go. I hated that woman with every breath in my body and every bone in my body. And when she was alive, I used to set my alarm clock an hour early so I could hate her for an hour longer every day. That's how much I hated her. But she did something. She did something. She come up with this phrase that there's no such thing as society. And I never heard anybody say before 1979, when she got the power, well, you have to look after yourself, don't you? Because that wasn't the way it was. When I remember growing up, I remember real societies, real communities, and working class people standing together. And she destroyed that to a great extent. And we have to take some responsibility. Because, you know, we lost the argument against privatisation. We lost it in the 80s and 90s. You know, when they were giving off council houses for next to nothing and people were seeing a quick profit. When they had Sid telling us you could buy gas shares and make a quick buck. When we had Busby sat on wires telling us you could do the same with telecom. We lost the argument. We were right, but we lost it. And privatisation run wild, run rapid. And it went on to the services that councils provide, that government used to provide. And no longer is public spending primarily to provide things people need, like a recycling plant. It's more about people making profit. It's become nothing but a milch cow for the friends of business to take and make massive profits out of. But if I tell you I work for Northern Rail, allegedly anyway, I don't know which work for them these days, and it's the largest train operating company. And in 2013-14, it had the biggest subsidy of public taxpayers' money of all the train operating companies. £700 million. Almost 40 million of that went in profits to Serco and Abellio, which is the Dutch state railway who own it. That profit should be run for public ownership, for public people, and the profit should be ploughed back in to reduce fares, not to make it dearer. And the councils should now be taking back all these services that's gone out to tender, because it's the privatisation of the services that allow Greenco and other companies like them to bully people, to pick on the most vulnerable in society and to grind them down. And we have to take them back. So we directly employ people, as Martin Mayer said earlier, on decent terms and conditions, because the damage to society that the Tories did, and Labour didn't put it all right, let's be honest, and I'm a member at Labour Party and remain a supporter at Labour Party. But we lost this last election because there wasn't a real alternative. They weren't saying we're going to get rid of austerity. They weren't saying we're going to make sure people pay the taxes. They weren't saying what they needed to say, and people turned elsewhere. Because you know, when Blair and Mandelson and people were in charge, and people told them then within the Labour Party, you're aiming for the middle ground, you're aiming for the Liberals, you're aiming for soft Tories. What about the natural support? And the answer was that came, they've got nowhere else to go. But you see, unfortunately now they have somewhere else to go. If it's in Scotland, they're going to the Scots Nats. In England, they've been going towards UKIP. And that the political lines are being divided not on class, but on nationalities and nationalism. And that's a very dangerous place where we're going. So, the Labour Party needs to regroup. The Labour Party, the Labour movement needs to regroup. And I'm pleased to say in this last election, we might have lost it, but we have more left MPs now in Parliament than we did before. Yes. And what I will say as well, I look to the North East very often. I spend a lot of time up in the North East. It's far better than the time I spend in London, I'll tell you that. But you look at the tranche of MPs in the North East now, when you have people like Ian Lavery, when you have people like Graham Morris, Dave Anderson, Ian Mearns, good left-wing MPs, and you look just one tranche of MPs before them who we had, when we had Blair and Mandelson and David Miliband. If they can change it so quickly, so can we, and maybe we've made a start. It was good to see Harry here today, because I remember last year a number of times speaking with the Care UK strikers who spent a year in dispute there, and not one of the 3 Labour MPs in Doncaster ever stood on that picket line. So all power to Harry and what he's doing. And I'll tell you what, I lose sleep about losing a Labour MP. I lose no sleep about losing people like Ed Balls. And I take a lot of pleasure when we get people like Harry and Richard Bergen in Yorkshire elected into office. And I'll tell you what, just maybe it's the start of us trying to change things. Because I don't believe there's one person gets involved in local politics, particularly at Labour side, that actually want to make cuts and want to hand contracts to people like Greenco. But they believe they're doing the best they can, and I have no problem with that. But what's good to see, and I now see a councillor here, Bob here, be stood here with the workers in struggle, stand with the freedom riders. Let's think, why should we as taxpayers have to pay more to Northern Rail to allow pensioners to travel at off-peak times when the seats are empty anyway? We pay Northern Rail a fortune. We pay them a fortune as it is, and they want extra off of us to put pensioners on empty seats when the trains are running empty through the day. It's a nonsense. And the councillors and everybody in SYPT should be stood alongside the freedom riders making that point. I'll finish on one point here. It's my own industry I'm talking about again, and I make no apologies for that. The Northern Rail franchise is back up. By the end of this year it will be given out to some other profiteers. There are 3 preferred bidders, one called Govia, one called Abellio, and one called Arriva. Well, if I go back through them in reverse order, Arriva is actually the German state railway. Abellio is the Dutch state railway. and Govia is the French State Railway, all under different names, but if it quacks like a duck and waddles like a duck, it's a duck. And the German State Railway make it quite clear that their interests in Britain's railways subsidise the German taxpayer. The Dutch State Railway, who I work for, they make it quite clear that their interest in Britain's railways keep the fares cheap in Holland, and meanwhile we have the dearest fares in Europe. It's a nonsense. It needs all bringing back into public ownership. And one thing I will say to you now is an invite, whether it's to Peter or whether it's to some of the workers at Greenco, on the Tuesday the 23rd of June at the Durham Miners headquarters, ASLEF has its district council meeting, where there'll be every branch of ASLEF in District 4, which covers Sheffield and works up in the south, up to the Scottish borders, everything on this side of the Pennines. And also with us will be the whole of Scotland from ASLEF. And that invite's there. Come, speak and address us and get this message out through the whole of District 4 of ASLEF and through the whole of Scotland in ASLEF. And let's make that go even further. You will hear from ASLEF nationally within the next 2 weeks, and that's the promise I can give you. Thank you, comrades.